Flyers head coach John Tortorella had quite a lot to say about the looming March 7th trade deadline. I'm Charlie O'Connor with PHLY Sports, and these are your Flyers post-practice notes.
Who's trading Ristolainen?
It was a very insightful 12-minute practice availability with John Tortorella, with the topic of the day being the trade deadline, which is next Friday, March 7th. The Flyers have two guys in particular, Rasmus Ristolainen and Scott Laughton, that have been heavily involved in trade rumors. They're at the top of the list on pretty much every trade availability ranking in the public sphere. Those names are out there, and John Tortorella was asked about both of them. I think it's fair to say when Ristolainen's name was brought up, Tortorella seemed pretty anti the idea of moving Rasmus Ristolainen. The first part of the availability, which was when Ristolainen's name was brought up, was a little bit more combative, a little bit more back and forth. Tortorella wasn't giving as much, but he did call Ristolainen a friendly contract for us. And he said that if you trade Ristolainen next Friday, on Saturday, you'll be looking for another big right-handed shooting defenseman to replace him. It sounds like a coach who, if he had his way, the Flyers would hang on to Ristolainen at least through the deadline and maybe longer. Now, with Scott Laughton, granted, this is a little later in the conversation. Tortorella was opening up a bit more, but it did seem like Tortorella might have been a little bit more open to the idea of trading Laughton. He said, look, Scotty is loved here in Philadelphia in this room, but you can't fall in love with players in this business. Obviously, the Flyers just recently traded away two other beloved players in that room, in Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee, very popular guys among their teammates, and that did not stop the Flyers from trading them away because they felt like they didn't fit. Whether Scott Laughton fits or not, that remains to be seen. He's 30 years old, has another year left on his contract, but it seemed like John Tortorella was at least leaving the door open to the possibility that Laughton's status in the room might not be enough to save him from getting moved if the right offer comes around. Tortorella's point, he straight up said, you can't have soft skin here, especially when you're in the position the Flyers are in, where they are not, at present, good enough to be a cup contender. Tortorella said you always have to be trying to get better, and Danny Briere, the Flyers general manager, has to be listening towards that end. Now, that's not to say that Tortorella doesn't have input. I actually pushed Tortorella on this specifically when Tortorella was talking about his involvement in the conversations with Briere about guys that are on the trade block.
Danny and I have constant conversations about this, and they'll ramp up here, right, as we get closer. I think Danny has been fantastic in getting information from the coaching staff down there as far as what we think our needs are, as far as our evaluation of players. I have some strong thoughts as far as I don't think they're going to be on the bus. That's not to run them down. It's just I need to be honest with my general manager about that. So how much input? I don't know. Danny's been very transparent with us. I think I love working with him because we're very open in our dialogue. And Jonesy's the same way. I think it's imperative that the general manager gets information for the coaching staff that are dealing with these players every day. I think they need that information before you come up with a final determination. Are they on the bus? Or we got to look to move them. Maybe it'll help us down the road in a future situation to make us better. Danny will talk to me about what may be offered, what team, and he'll ask me, and I'll tell him the truth. It's my job. I have to give him the information, what I think about that specific player, if that's the player being talked about in a deal, a free agency, if we look to sign someone, what kind of information you have on him. I give it to him. It's my job. I'm not going to circumvent that. I'm not going to shy away from it. And to me, it's not being disrespectful to them. It's being honest, and that's the only way I know how to do it with the players and with my manager.
Tortorella confirmed that not only does he provide his input on, as he put it, which guys should be on the bus moving forward, he also even provides his input in terms of specifics in terms of the trades. He'll talk about what draft pick he thinks a guy maybe should go for in his opinion, a prospect, a player, the specific return. So Tortorella is very much, per John Tortorella, in the conversations about these trade negotiations that Danny Briere is having with other teams. Now, in the end, of course, it's Danny Briere's call, and Tortorella made that clear. Look, a guy like Morgan Frost, while he did eventually get traded, it took a while. And I'm guessing that if John Tortorella had his way, Frost would have been traded far earlier than he ultimately was. So it's Danny Briere's call. But make no mistake, John Tortorella, he made it clear today, and really it should be obvious if you've been paying attention the last 2 years, he has a big voice in the conversation and will continue to have a big voice in the conversation over the next week in the lead up to the NHL trade deadline next Friday. I'm Charlie O'Connor with PHLY Sports. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.